Time now. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from my daughter's bedroom, and I am here to talk about a Mike Flanagan show that you are probably very familiar with. If you're watching the Lasser cast, named after the Lasser glass from Mike Flanagan's film Oculus, then we are talking about the fall of the House of Usher, now streaming on Netflix. My handsome co-host over there, Danny Torkel, that's right. He and I already talked about episodes 1 and 2 of this show. We'd like to take our little sweet time with Mike Flanagan's work. Even though all the episodes are available on Netflix, tonight we are just covering episodes 3 and 4. So, Danny, you pretty much just go to work, watch movies, and post things on the Lastercast.
Yeah, this has been a week, a great week. I don't want to ever make it feel like I'm complaining. I fucking love it. My friends and sometimes my family question, why don't I just go home and go to sleep? And the last 2 nights, I left work, went into the city. I saw Tuesday night the Shutter showcase at the IFC Center for Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, which is the 4th film in the incredibly underrated Hell House LLC franchise. Director Stephen Cognetti and the entire cast and crew were there. He did a Q&A with director Sam Zimmerman and with the audience after that. I recorded and I posted to the channel, and I gave a review. Just like all the others, it's freaking scary, and it'll be on Shudder on Monday. So everybody should check that out. And then last night, Charlotte and I went to see an advanced screening of Five Nights at Freddy's, a movie that I honestly had no idea how culturally significant it is to people far younger than us. Because I work in a high school, and all of my students are flipping out about going to see this movie tomorrow. And they were so jealous of me when I told them I had already seen it. And I showed up to work with my Freddy Fazbear empty pizza box that I got for throwing a Five Nights at Freddy's cornhole bag into a cornhole game that they had set up.
Wow.
So Charlotte and I saw that. We posted a short review. The short version is Charlotte absolutely loved it, and I really liked it. But I think if you're a fan of those games and the lore behind it, you're going to friggin' love it. I'm going to turn the light on because I'm sitting in the dark over here.
Yeah.
All right. There we go.
Now I can see your sexy face, man.
Oh, yes. That's why I was confused when you said sexy before. But yeah, I've just been out and about. We were supposed to, in full disclosure, we were supposed to do a couple of reviews tonight, and I fell behind on my Mike Flanagan homework. I got a late start on this show because of Comic-Con, and I just my schedule and all the things I'm trying to get done in October with the best time of the year for us. I just kind of fallen behind, and so we're only going to be reviewing episodes 3 and 4 tonight, which I think is good because it gives us a chance to focus on the individual episodes, the individual characters that the shows focus on, the individual Poe stories that serve as the basis for this show. And I don't know. So let me ask you, since I've been talking nonstop now for about 3 minutes, when we reviewed episodes 1 and 2, you definitely enjoyed it,
I knew this
but
question was
you were
coming.
a little critical. Are you still a little bit critical?
I knew that question was coming. No, I have completely changed my tune. I have done my Flanagan homework. I'm up to I finished episode 6, so I just have 7 and 8 left. And I really like the show a lot. I think any kind of thing that I was critical about in the first 2 episodes has been shed completely. And the show has a pattern to it. This show has some incredible dialogue. And I think that sort of any kind of annoying aspects of the show have sort of been shed. And now I'm very much invested. I want to watch episode 7 and 8. It's funny. Sometimes I picture Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel just like at home, flip it on YouTube or whatever. Maybe one of them's got it on their phone and like, oh, it's those two guys that like named their show after the Lasser Glass. Those two guys, right? That kind of that fat guy with the red hair that is in his daughter's bedroom for some reason, and the other guy, right, who's a teacher. Oh no, the fat guy doesn't like the first two episodes, right? But I'm happy to say Kate Siegel and Mike Flanagan, if you're actually sitting here and watching our episode, that I'm a big fan. The Mask of the Red Death is the one that we did last time. Now we're up to Murder in the
That's
Rue
the
Morgue.
one that I'm pretty sure is going to have an all-timer ending. I don't know if we gave that ending its due, because it's been, like you said, it's been now 2 weeks since the show debuted.
It was October 12th.
Yeah, so it's October 26th. It's Thursday the 26th. It's basically been 2 weeks since the show debuted, and I still hear people talking about the ending of episode 2. Thankfully, I haven't had the entire series spoiled for me yet. Thank you, social media, for somehow not spoiling it. I've avoided full reviews. I haven't even watched Chris's review just in case. I know he loved it, but I haven't even watched that. I'm trying to really stay as out of the conversation as I can as I slowly make my way through it. But yeah, episode 2 ended in this brutal, unbelievable way. And we get the kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? The
epilogue?
Fallout. Thank you. In episode 3, which is the murders at the Rue Morgue, or the murder at the Rue Morgue. Which I do love the simplicity of Roderick Usher Enterprises being the RUE of Rue Morgue.
Yes. I actually really like this episode. I think that after I watched it, I tweeted Carla Gugino is a force. And I think that it has a pattern, this show. Basically, you focus on one sibling per episode. You see what their main vice is. You get glimpses of it in prior episodes, and there's overarching storylines. And then Carla Gugino comes into their life. She kind of tells them a little speech. You see how they react to her, and then essentially they get taken out by their own hand. And there's these sort of twisted ways that these siblings die. This scene at the very end with Carla Gugino and Kate Siegel was just top notch. We're going to talk about that in a second. I do want to plug Chris, because I know Chris plugs our stuff. Future Boy Chris, that's where you can find him on all of his social media handles, and then he's got a YouTube channel, Future Boy Chris, too. Chris, I did watch his short review of this season, and he said that Flanagan knocked it out of the park, used a baseball metaphor. And then I was sitting here being critical of the first 2 episodes. I'm like, I'm sorry, Chris, but I'm totally on board. I definitely agree too with him.
When you tweeted that Carl Gugino is a force, I think I responded that there's a scene that gave me absolute chills that she has in this episode.
Right.
She has that amazing dialogue moment with Prospero at the end of episode 2 that we talked about how sometimes the moment isn't as good as what leads up to it and what comes after.
Right.
And she's got these, I don't know what she is yet.
I don't either. Yeah.
And again, we're not spoiling it. We're actually far behind. Most people have already watched the full season, full series, because Netflix just, unlike other streaming services that have gone into the more episodic realm, like a Hulu or Amazon Prime, or Max, of course, Netflix is still on the dump train, where they just dump it all out there and they go, here it is, binge it.
Yes.
And so I don't know what she is, but I love this idea that the show is progressing like Haunting of Hill House, where every episode continues the overarching story, but gives a focus to one of the family members. just like the first 7 episodes of Hill House did.
Yeah.
Ha!
There you go.
What's up, Chris?
Chris, our friend, Lastercast alumni. I'm here. I heard you calling. Love you guys. I love this show. Top tier Flanagan. Look at that. Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know what Carl Gugino is, but I love how it's Hill House, where every episode is based on one of the family members, but there she is lurking as like this continuous specter that haunts each of them and like kind of leads to their death. Doesn't kill them, but leads them to their death. And I just love that aspect. It feels like a very 21st century Poe, because like Poe was all about the specter of death. Like the Mask of the Red Death, his story is about like plague, like hanging over this like rich, debaucherous prince, and you see these stories throughout how it's all about dread and people going crazy, but a little bit at a time, almost like a pre-Lovecraftian horror. And I think that her character here is really getting that vibe. There's a scene, like you said, that we'll talk about in this episode that blew me away. She does this thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting it. And when she did it, I kind of just gave like a, huh?
Yeah.
And like, I just got goosebumps down the arm, down the spine.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Well, since people have probably watched the whole show and we kind of already jumping into a little bit of spoilers, let's jump right to that part. Of course, we can always backtrack and talk about other parts of the episode, but I did want to get to that specific part. So at the end of this episode, Camille is searching through the Rue Morgue, essentially. She's trying to find these remnants of like the animals, the gorillas or whatever that have been tested on, the apes that have been tested on in this lab. And Carla Gugino is pretending to be a security guard that's working there for the night. Carla Gugino, she's kind of like, she's like this sort of like every character, like she just like takes on these different roles and fits into their lives, and so she's this security guard there, and it's incredible to see that she essentially starts mimicking a ape at one point. And in any other director's hands, but Mike Flanagan's, and with any other actress, this would be very goofy. This would be very strange. This wouldn't work. You'd kind of be like, what am I watching? But it's fucking like, it's deep and it's scary. Right? I mean, it's like she's talking about the way that animals are abused and destroyed during testing, and it's kind of talking about like the greed of humanity and the destructive power of humanity. It's this like comment on human nature, and she's fucking making ape noises, and it's just like primal and scary. I love it.
Yeah, and the moment in question is basically we have Gugino is basically stalking Kate Siegel around this table, the like lab table, and Kate Siegel is looking for some type of information about Victorine Tanaya Miller's research, trying to figure out what she's doing. They're on the idea that she might be the spy, the mole, and she's there, and Carla Gugino is kind of like tracking her around, disguised as this security guard, and then she just, in like one motion, leaps up to the fucking table,
right,
like a chimpanzee,
right.
And at that point, you know exactly what's going to happen. And I think this is such a skill that is missing from a lot of modern horror, is the ability for us as the audience to sit there and know exactly what is about to happen. And instead of it being like, oh, all right, okay, he's going to kill her now, or whatever. Instead of us going like that, it actually makes things more tense.
Yeah.
I need to bring up the movie When Evil Lurks because it's going to hit Shudder tomorrow, and
Shit.
everybody needs it. There is a moment in When Evil Lurks that you know exactly what's going to happen. It's not a secret. The director might as well be holding a sign up saying, "Get ready, it's going to happen soon."
Oh my God.
And I still sat there in the movie theater with my hands like this, going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God, don't, no, 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 no." And then it happened, and you just go, "Oh fuck, come on!"
Yeah.
And you know at this point that Carla Gugino is a chimpanzee that is going to rip Kate Siegel apart.
Yes.
And it doesn't change anything for how awesome and how tense the moment is.
Yes.
Chris said career all-time highs for Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. So glad they ditched Frank Langella for Greenwood. Yeah. Bruce Greenwood is one of the probably most underrated actors of the last several decades. I first recall seeing him as JFK in 13 Days.
I remember that. Yes.
A really underrated historical drama.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, the two of them worked amazingly together in Gerald's Game by Flanagan. So for Flanagan to be able to start Netflix and end Netflix with Greenwood and Gugino together, kind of as the anchors of this show, is kind of poetic in a way. Poetic.
Oh my God. Yes. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Bruce Greenwood's had a lot of different roles, and he always kind of stands out, even though he's usually the supporting character. He was the voice of Batman in the Young Justice cartoon. He was the voice of Batman in a few different movies as well. But that Young Justice cartoon is fantastic, and I just love listening to him talk and monologue in this show. We're going to talk about him in a minute, too. But let's talk about Kate Siegel's death for a second. The show, the pattern is that one of the children dies, and it's this horrific thing that you see, and then there's like a moment of silence to kind of be like, what the fuck did I just see? Then you see the credits, the fall of the House of Usher, right? For her death, it was so interesting because Carla Gugino is essentially mimicking this chimpanzee. Then Kate Siegel says, I got mine. And she takes a picture of Carla Gugino, and it's the ape. I thought that was really, really well done and scary. What's interesting, Danny, have they ever done like behind the scenes documentaries or anything like that for these Flanagan shows? Like, has Flanagan ever done like a behind the scenes, like a script or anything?
I'm sure he has. I actually bought The Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor as like a double DVD.
Yeah.
Because I was just so excited to see it as a physical copy.
Yeah.
And I haven't even opened it. I've just ended up going back to Netflix and rewatching the series over and over again.
Right.
Charlotte is actually twisting my arm because we finished Hill House to get back to now showing Athena Bly Manor. So, but I'm not sure. I'm sure he has. I'm sure there's been behind the scenes.
I would absolutely love to see the behind the scenes for like Midnight Mass, and then for this now too. I mean, I'd love to see it for all of his projects, but especially Midnight Mass and this. The reason why I bring that up is because in our first episode, I kind of was critical of the dialogue, and I was critical of the show kind of seeming like Succession. And I thought that Kate Siegel's character just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I was talking about how he casts people in these different roles, and it could be ambitious as to which person from the Flana family goes into what role. And what was interesting about this, the behind the scenes, this is what I was wondering about, was, Kate Siegel dies, and we're 3 episodes in. Like, his wife, who's often been one of the main characters that's featured throughout a show, is killed 3 episodes in. So she knew that she wouldn't be around that much. And it's interesting. I wonder what that decision looked like, because there's Tamerlane, who is played by Samantha Sloyan, and she's around longer than Kate Siegel. And I was wondering if like she could have played that role too. Kate Siegel could have been Tamerlane, So it's interesting, like who they picked to be in what role. I bet you. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I mean, just because they died doesn't mean the show is like most Flanagan stuff. It messes with time. Obviously, the show starts and all 6 kids are dead already. So we know 6 Usher children are dead already. So we know they're all dead. And now we're basically watching them die in flashbacks as Bruce Greenwood tells the story. So they could still theoretically appear later in the series.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because it threw me off a little bit because I think there is that, there's the knowledge that of course Kate Siegel is married to Mike Flanagan, and you just kind of expect her to be around longer. It's an 8-episode series, but shit, she dies in episode 3.
Yeah.
Okay, she has co-written with him before, so I am assuming that her role as an actress, while it might have been over, I'm sure her role on set did not end with Camille's death. Her giving her flowers, her scene where she chews out her 2 assistants, is one of the funniest diatribes I have ever heard. So there's this scene in, I think it was episode 2, where you're like, are these like her children? Are did she adopt these young kids? Oh, are they her assistants? Is she the Devil Wears Prada and these are her live-in assistants? And then all of a sudden they all get they're yeah, we found stuff out at work today, and they're casually unbuttoning, and then she takes off her top and they all go to bed together, and you're like, oh, okay. And that goes back to, what I said last time, that this is easily the horniest Mike Flanagan series that we've ever had.
Oh, by far, yeah.
Between Prospero's orgies, between Kate Siegel's work throuple, what's his name? Rahul Kohli as Leo is, always has men and women around.
Blowing him.
Yeah, pretty much his entire part of the show. And don't forget Tamerlan, Samantha Sloyan. Her kink is to pay women to come and act as effectively her husband's wife to, know, act out scenes, and that turns her on.
Right.
So, but Kate Siegel, she sends her assistants to find out the information about Victorine, and they basically are like, we didn't find anything, and also we can't work for you anymore because we accidentally fell in love with each other.
Right.
These are 2 actors who were together on the Midnight Club, and Igby Rigby, his name rhymes. He was also in Midnight Mass, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she just chews into them. She has this amazing line where I think she says something like, in a few weeks when the stench is off the rose, or when the glamour is off the rose, and you look at and he farts in the night, and you go to and you think to yourself, what the fuck did I do?
Right.
And it's just that's what causes her. Them ending that weird work throuple is what leads her to stomp out and go and do the research for herself, and that's what gets her killed by the Carla Gugino monkey.
You just said that sentence.
That's a sentence that I said that if you watch the show, it kind of sort of makes sense.
Yes. I mean, it's funny because in the first episode, it's established that all of them are dead, but we don't see that pattern yet. We don't see the scene where they interact with Carlo Gugino and then they're killed off. It seems like they saved all the horny stuff for episode 2, but there is still horny dialogue, and then there is a couple of sex scenes or implied sexual stuff in future episodes. But it's funny, like with this episode in particular, we do start to see Raul Cooley's character start to unravel too. And I was trying to grapple like what's so bad about him? Like with all of the children, it's very evident why they are bad people and sort of like why they kind of need to be punished. But with him, it's just essentially infidelity. That's his kind of his flaw, his dark thing. You know, he
drugs.
Okay. Sorry. Maybe I'm being a little too liberal over here, but like, you know, yeah, he's doing crazy amounts of drugs. Oh, and he's giving people a lot of different drugs, not just like pot. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But you know, every episode you see all these people sort of unraveling and losing their minds, and it still isn't established by episode 4, which we're talking about today, like what Carla Gugino's connection is to the USHER family. But we do have this overarching storyline where it's showing Roderick's rise to power and his sister's influence. And I love these flashback scenes because like it could have easily been one episode of the series where it's just like, oh, here's the flashback episode and it just shows the past. But they decided to like string it along over probably the entire series. And I just really love every time that Michael Trucco shows up on this show. And he's got some kind of horny dialogue too. You'll see when you watch a little further. But Michael Trucco, he's kind of been a supporting character. He's mostly been a good guy in Flanagan things. And in this, he's kind of like the prototype for USHER.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just waiting for him to fall basically too.
I also love Willa Fitzgerald as Madeline. Younger Madeline. I think she has this like ruthlessness to her that is fantastic. I think she was the lead girl in the Scream TV series.
Oh, okay.
And I was covering that for the first few seasons for Geeks of Doom, and I liked that series. I didn't love it, but I think she's come an incredible way as an actress. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
And young USHER is, you have to remind me of his name because
let me look him up. Zach Galifianakis.
No, not Zach Galifianakis. Because he was one of the leads in Midnight Mass, and he was fantastic. He had some amazing moments in Midnight Mass.
Correct.
And he's great in this as well.
Yes. And you know, you kind of Zach Gilford. You feel for him. You feel for him because, you know, obviously he has this young wife and they're trying to, you know, start a family. They have 2 kids by the beginning of the show. And, you know, he's just essentially trying to make a name for himself. And Michael Trucco is just basically exploiting him. I hope I'm not spoiling anything for you, Danny. Is there any kind of thing that he's uncovered at Fortunato yet?
The last time they interacted in episode 3 and 4 was when he basically said, I stole your idea and now I'm going to, you know, he's like, you can be angry and leave, or you could be like my guy.
Okay. Good. Whoa. I came close to spoiling something for you. I'm good. I'm glad I did not. Yeah, but like we see, you know, obviously this is leading up to a certain Edgar Allan Poe story too. I'm not going to spoil that for you either, but it's just, you know, the overlapping stuff is great. And then it all ties into this, you know, Bruce Greenwood scene at the end of the whole series where he's basically just explaining everything to the lawyer DuPont, you know, or what the fuck is his name?
Dupin.
Yeah, not DuPont. He's not a fucking thing of paint, right? But you know, and then there's these great fucking jump scares too that'll happen while Bruce Greenwood is talking to. Oh, look at this! You had to jump on.
What's going on?
Hey,
nothing. I'm just sort of rambling because I'm trying not to spoil the show for Danny.
I was too busy watching the show. I didn't see you send me a link.
Nice. Yes. Well, we were kind of still going through episode 3.
Okay.
Actually, surprise! This is now the Exorcist believer chat. No,
Buckle up.
yeah.
Yes. So, Chris, like, let's see. I'm trying to think of like what we haven't covered in episode 3 yet. You know what? We haven't really gone into the stuff with Victorine and her like lover. What do you think about that whole story arc?
Oh God, was that episode 3?
So we learn a lot about it in episode 3, and then it goes into full blown horror in episode 4.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Which
Whoa! Hold on! Oh my God, I'm so full of shit, Chris. That's episode 5. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up for now, Danny.
okay. Well,
Yes.
no,
Yeah,
you
episode
didn't.
4. We're basically up to episode 4, which is the Raul Coley versus the Black Cat.
We know-
Sledgehammer of death match.
And it's not like you gave anything away. You know that we're all. You know. Every episode is like.
It's not like I didn't know that the other Usher children are going to die. It's like.
Yeah.
Also, she has Carlo Gugino has showed up there as the patient needing the new heart mesh transplant.
Yes.
There you go.
So we know that she's involved in another character. There's also the great scene where they zoom in, they enhance.
Yeah.
And Roderick sees who it is, and from like the bartender from when him and his sister obviously got away with something.
Yeah.
Can we also just talk about how, and I fucking love this because of how important he's been to Mike Flanagan stuff over the years, how much of a doofus Henry Thomas is in this series.
Oh, yeah. We had Denise and I were watching it together, and we had a conversation like early on. Again, not giving anything away, but she keeps looking over at me. I'm like, what? Just say it. She's like, I hope he gets better. I'm like, I think he will. I'm like, listen, I think Henry Thomas turned out to be a better actor as an adult than people ever thought he would. I know Flanagan loves using him. He's very surprising a lot of the times. Do I think he belongs in every role I see him in? No, I don't. But I will say this. If you're struggling with him right now, I think his character really comes into his own as the season progresses.
I actually like the fact that he's playing so against type.
Even better for you then, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just such and this goes to something that Pete brought up in our first review, is like kind of nitpicking some of the casting choices, not the actors, but like the roles that they took, because I could totally see Henry Thomas more pretty much as any of the other siblings. But to have him go from like Hugh Crane to the doofy guy with the man bun who's taking the blame for the acid bath.
I mean, out of Flanagan projects, you think that Jack Torrance would be the unlikeliest of roles he would take. Meanwhile, he's very good in that. He's so good in Gerald's Game, in a bit role in Gerald's Game. I have to ask though, I haven't heard you guys talk about it yet. I don't know if it came up on the last episode you did. How you feel about old and young casting for Roderick's sister. Her name escapes me now. That's one that I struggled with throughout the series, because I think the younger version, that actress is phenomenal. And while I do enjoy Mary McDonald, while I do enjoy Mary McDonald, whether it be Battlestar or Independence Day, I tell myself, I'm like, is she doing what she wants? Is this what the older version of this character is? And it's hard because the younger version is just knocking it out of the park every time she's on screen.
I think we were just talking about some of the flashback scenes, and I love Willa Fitzgerald so much. The younger Madeline, and you've watched the whole series, so I could probably just tell from your facial reactions when I say this. I hope Mary McDonald gets to do more, because she hasn't really gotten to do anything.
Yeah.
to make her feel like an adult version or an older version of Willa Fitzgerald, who's killing it in these flashbacks.
Well, I will say that without keeping it within the time frame of episodes that you guys are in right now, two characters that I struggled with were Henry Thomas's and Mary McDonald, and they did work so much better for me on screen as the show went on, to the point where by the end of it, I'm like, once again, phenomenal casting. I could say that I loved everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, talking about this with you, Danny, and now with you, Chris, too, because usually Danny's the one that's watched everything way in advance of me, and he's worried about spoiling things to me, and now I'm kind of tripping on my own feet trying to spoil things for him. I'm only up to episode 6, but Chris, I was kind of hoping you could kind of walk us through the Black Cat, the Raoul Cooley episode.
Oh man, talk about a guy that is proving that he could play anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he's introduced into the Flanagan family through Bly Manor, playing such a, like, you can't help but be charmed, and he's just like, you're like, who's this guy? You know, like, he's just, and then Midnight Mass, totally different character. Usher, totally different character. He's just unreal.
Yeah.
And I just was waiting for this episode, knowing that we were getting like an episode all about him, and he's just so charismatic. And this was another, like, you have a feeling like where it's going, and then it just winds up being like, what we're here to do with this character, but then it just gets wild. And it's almost with all the like Roger Corman Poe adaptations back in the day, this almost felt like a modern Roger Corman Poe adaptation. Like, it just got wild at times.
Yes.
It almost felt like it. There was a point in the episode where it almost felt animated, where he's like running around with like a freaking like mini sledgehammer, smashing the walls.
Right.
He's running around with Mjolnir.
Yeah. Right. He has Thor's hammer. He makes a joke about Chris Hemsworth. And, there's one thing I wanted to point out, too, that we haven't mentioned yet, is that this show is legitimately funny. I think it's actually funnier than almost every other Flanagan Netflix show.
Yeah.
There's, like, Chris, in your quick review, you said that, he swings for the fences and he hits a grand slam, or something. You used a baseball metaphor. And I think that he's just basically just putting it all out on the table, if I'm going to use like a poker metaphor, right? He's just going, just putting everything out there. The humor is up to 10. The characters are up to 10. And this episode is really funny. He makes this like Chris Hemsworth joke as he's smashing Mjolnir into the walls of his apartment. Then, Danny, you mentioned this before too. I need to bring this up. I need to go back to it. When they're looking at the video footage of the Rue Morgue, Bruce Greenwood's like, can you enhance it? He's like, they do that on all the shows. And it's so fucking funny because Mary McDonald was on like The Closer and stuff too, which is like one of those shows where they would enhance shit.
Yeah.
I
just good.
There's also the back and forth, like, which is now, I've only seen 4 episodes, but it's been going on now for 3 episodes about they can't figure out the difference between a mole and an informant.
Oh, yeah,
and they keep correcting each other about, no. If it was a mole, it would be somebody from the outside burrowing in. An informant is one of us leaking information out. So who's the mole? Who's the person? It is like, it's legit. There's a lot of legitimate, like, everything that Raoul Coley does in this episode is funny until it becomes scary.
Yeah.
And I think again, like, a lesser filmmaker can't toe that line the way that Flanagan can, and the way that his actors can. And I've been a fan of Raoul Coley since iZombie. Athena had me watching episodes of that. And actually, young Carl Lumley is played by the cop from iZombie.
Okay.
So that's like a little iZombie connection on this show. I'm almost waiting for like the pale blonde girl from iZombie to show up in one of Flanagan's shows.
Another Carl Lumley is. It's the two of them. I could watch him and Greenwood sit across from each other and talk. It's so you're so locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's also one other really funny thing too. Since we're talking about Raul Cooley, and then we're also talking about fucking Elliot from E.T.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas. Like, he's grieving over like what's happening with his wife, and so he seeks out Raul Cooley, and he's like, do you have any cocaine? Right, that whole exchange between the two of them, where he gives him cocaine. I just love that. That's yet again.
How about where he takes her mask off to try to get the face, unlocking of the phone, and he's trying to, and she doesn't have any skin left, so she can't do the fingers, and he's like, "Fuck, it's not working." Like, that's why I like his performance, because it's so like ridiculously pathetic.
It's pathetic.
In a way, it's weird for it to be him getting that when it's like, I just rewatched Hill House, and to me he's like still Hugh Crane, patriarch of the family, like trying, like, I can fix it, and now to watch him now years later be this like pathetic older brother, it's almost comforting or refreshing to see it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's, and again, such an unlikely person to, eventually join this group a few Flanagan projects ago. And I just love how much faith Flanagan has in him. Every time I see like what kind of role he's giving him, I'm like, yeah, for Henry Thomas, okay, like we'll see where it goes. And for the most part, it works.
Yeah. So let's keep raving about Carla Gugino, though, then, because she does show up at Raul Cooley's apartment at the end. And probably the most gruesome thing besides the acid bath orgy is Carla Gugino with her eye knocked out of her head, right?
But before that, her character basically it looks like cosplay of the chick from NCIS. Like, she's got like the choker collar and just like the short brown. She's like she's like the IT person on like NCIS. And I'm like, this was an interesting choice. Like, they're like, what would someone who runs a rescue clinic look like? There it is.
Yes. That's a really good point. Yeah. And so, she's basically there. Raul Cooley thinks that he's murdered this cat in a gruesome way, and he cleans up the, evidence. And then he goes to replace it. And that's like out of a sitcom, that kind of plot where it's like, oh, that cat looks like the cat that is missing or that I've lost or whatever.
Yeah.
And then throughout the episode, we see these kind of gruesome discoveries that Raul Cooley has, where he finds like, a dead rat and like pieces of things that this cat has gotten into. And then he calls her to help capture the cat, which he thinks is like in the walls, which that's such a Poe thing, right? The fucking cat in the walls. And then she basically talks about, she always has this like insightful thing about either humans or animals. In this one, she's talking about like what good predators cats are. I feel like I learned something new from Carla Gugino every time she kills someone, right? and then, she's standing there. Y'all just imagine that he was going to jump off that balcony, right? I mean, based on how Bruce Greenwood saw him.
Oh, that fucking jump scare was awesome. Like, they've done that a couple times, in these first few episodes, where you're sitting there watching Carl Lumbly, Bruce Greenwood sitting right across from each other. They're talking, and then just for Bruce Greenwood's point of view, you see like Raul Coley's body just splat, or the ghost, or the friggin' melted corpse behind Carl Lumbly, where he's like, I'm not turning around, Roderick.
Right.
It's just great stuff.
Go ahead, Chris.
Some of those have been really good. There was one early on. Oh God, who was the first kid to go? Oh no, it was Prospero. There's one early on, the first where he's like, I'm not turning around, Rod. Prospero is very well hidden within like that relic of a house. And I'm sitting there with Denise, and I'm like, oh my God, how creepy. And she's like, what? I'm like, are we not looking at the same time? Like, he was just so well, just kind of like posed. And then she didn't see him until he moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, God, Flanagan, just everything, the way he does that, the way he, like, when spirits show up, whether they're either hiding or he's not afraid to put them in a line and space them out perfectly and take them out of focus, and like their eyes all glow, and they just the way it's such a Flanagan universe thing. And I love that this series has basically been him directing and Michael Fumigari, his cinematographer. I love that. The whole series was just the two of them directing.
Yes, and I remember, Chris, like on our thread, you mentioned Michael Fumigari. Does he basically direct Flanagan shows, or has he made feature films himself?
I don't know what he's done, if he's done anything beyond this, maybe like a couple short films. Usually you'll see that on their IMDb. But as far as I know, he's for the most part has just always been Flanagan's cinematographer.
Yeah, he's definitely worked on at least the last 3 Flanagan Netflix series.
Just like I'm sure I don't know for sure, but I would imagine the Newton brothers did the score for this, right? Because that's who he basically uses from now on.
Yeah, he's and did you see they released the cast for the new movie, the new Stephen King movie, the
Life of Chuck?
I was gonna say Life of Brian. No, that's not right.
No. He's on the other YouTube channel.
So Heather Langenkamp is back. She was in Midnight Club. She's back.
Matthew Lillard,
who I just saw in Five Nights at Freddy's, and he's just a lot of fun.
And coming back to the Flanagan family for the first time since Oculus, Karen Gillan.
Oh yes. I was like, Matthew Lillard. Yeah, Karen Gillan's back. That's awesome. So it's funny. I was at Comic-Con, and Katie Sackhoff was there. Of course, everybody knows her now from friggin' the Dave Filoni's Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. Yeah. Where she's freaking awesome. And Karen Gillan was there as part of like the Guardians of the Galaxy crew. And I'm sitting there like, they should do a friggin' Oculus photo op together. And I'm like literally the only person out of thousands of people at Comic-Con who's like, I want my Katie Sackhoff, Karen Gillan Oculus photo op.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I have been my whole month. I usually have a thing every year for Halloween where I focus on something specific, whether it's Universal Monsters or Carpenter or Cronenberg, whatever. This year, I've just been obsessed with Freevee, because Freevee has an ongoing running Universal Monsters channel. Nice. And they have a horror channel. They have a Halloween channel. So I've been coming home from work every day and just throwing on Freevee, and just like whatever plays. And Universal Monsters channel is obviously all the classic stuff, but it's also Hammer, and then they'll throw some Carpenter in there. It's been great. But they've been showing commercials for Oculus, and it's like they made up their own commercial for Oculus, and they actually made up like a nursery rhyme for it. And I'm like, I don't think this was ever in the movie. Did they make up like their own Oculus nursery about like the laser glass? I'm like, this is not, we said the thing. But I'm like, is this the, I'm like, is this, I'm like, I don't, maybe a deleted scene, but I'm like, I love that they care enough about it or think it's like low key that important that they kind of made up their own commercial for it. It's very interesting.
That is cool. I mean, you're making me want to get that channel. I'm assuming it's a streaming channel.
Oh, right? It's like a free Amazon Prime channel. It's it's like Tubi for Amazon Prime.
Okay. Shit, I'll check it out. I mean, people should definitely check out your channel too, man. Because you're just fucking great. You got me excited about this show when I saw your review of it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I wanted
if I'm not doing reviews, I'm just doing stupid videos. I posted I'll post like trending, I made like a Psycho video just before with the screaming old man that wanders into frame. Like, whatever. It just makes people happy. And, it's, you can only stand listening to me for more than 30 seconds or 60 seconds at a time. So
we did this great one that was for Exorcist Believer too, right?
Oh, I did one for Exorcist Believer last night. That's kind of become
my dies tonight. That's now Future Boy Chris.
Oh no, I made a new one for Exorcist Believer last night. That's really become my Halloween ends for this year.
Right. I'm sure tomorrow on Saturday we'll have some more to talk about it.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, man. Well, so is there anything else we should talk about for these 2 episodes? Oh, actually, okay. I remember now because Chris, you started talking about Michael. I'm gonna fuck up his last name.
Fimignari.
Fimignari. Thank you so much. Just one thing I wanted to say real quick was that Flanagan is, on the credits for each of the screenplays for each of these episodes, but it's interesting because he has these other random writers with him. I'm not really familiar. I'd have to kind of go into IMDb. There's Emmy Grinwis. Then there's Matt Johnson. He wrote the Black Cat episode. The one name that stood out for me was Justina Ireland, who wrote Murder in the Rue Morgue. And the reason why I just know about her is because she's a novelist. I guess she writes other things as well, but she's written her own kind of like historical fiction stories or like historical fantasy stories. And then she's also written a few Star Wars novels, and I've covered them on my other channel. So I was like,
oh, cool.
That's a real interesting pairing for her to be writing with Flanagan. So he's got a real diverse writer's room with him. And then the episode, The Telltale Heart, which I think is kind of my favorite out of the 6 that I've watched, that's not written by Flanagan at all. That's written by Danny Parker. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Chris, I was going to ask you, out of episodes 1 through 6, right? The 6th one is Goldbug, 5 is The Telltale Heart. Which is your favorite out of 1 through 6? Like, just think of the siblings. Like, which one is your favorite out of the first 6?
You know what? I really have to go, and it's great because you guys, off the top of my head, it's so hard to choose, but off the top of my head, you guys spoke about it before, and I enjoyed watching you talk about it because it got me excited thinking about it again. But Kate Siegel and just that scene with her and Carla Gugino is just, you said like, in the hands of anyone else, in the hands of David Gordon Green, this could have been just a shithouse rat of a scene. But in Flanagan's hands, just Carla Gugino, and it doesn't hurt that she is just a masterful actor and just a goddess up on that table, just walking around on her knuckles. And Kate Siegel, who is so intimidating in the series, that veneer is slowly breaking off and she's becoming more and more terrified. That's an all-timer throughout this series for me. There are some more all-timers once we get past episode 6, but off the top of my head, that one really stands out.
Yes. And Chris, I'm really glad that you said that Kate Siegel is so intimidating, because there was this one mini monologue that she did that I thought was really excellent too, where she talks about how ushers don't create anything. I thought that was really great, where she essentially like breaks down all the siblings and says their contributions to the world. And it's really interesting.
That was, and like Raul Coley's like, I make video games. And she's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You hire people to create video games. And
right.
Like, yeah. Right. All right. Well, fuck you then.
and then Danny, I was going to ask you, has there been a speech yet that you've seen where they talk about lemons, when life gives you lemons?
Oh yeah, that was when life gives you lemons, and then like you invest in lemons, and he goes on this like whole business thing about
unreal.
Yes. Such a great fucking monologue, because you see the setup. You and I, we've all watched thousands of movies and TV shows. We know the setup. It's like he's gonna say, when life gives you lemons, and then he's gonna be like, you're gonna fuck the mother and squeeze a lemon on her ass or something, right? but instead he does this like fucking like 5-minute monologue, and it's like, oh, okay, that's smart. Yes, you should do that. Oh, that's twisted. Okay, so fucking good.
Yeah. Just another series, full where, and again, he doesn't overdo it. I mean, the closest I think Flanagan ever came to overdoing it with the monologues, and even still, you're like, give me all of it. I love it all. Is Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass, yeah, right.
But this one is, there's just a handful of monologues, and they're fucking perfection.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I have to rewatch Midnight Mass because I'm not trying to get anybody down, but that show came on just a couple months after my dad passed, and those monologues meant so much to me at the time. And like since then, every time I talk to people about it, they're like, "Oh my God, I couldn't get into that show. All they did was fucking talk." And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
And I'm like, but like I do kind of get their point, because there were a lot of monologues in that show. There were. Yeah. But they were so fucking good and deep that it didn't bother me. I was telling Pete, like, Athena just finished Hill House for the first time. So like Charlotte and I got to like watch it with her again.
I would love to watch that for the first time.
And,
you know,
so now we're gonna start Blind Manor soon, and like we're gonna start working our way through until like, so I'll finish this and then I'll probably rewatch it again with them when we get to it.
Nice.
All right, well, gentlemen, we are coming up on the hour here. I think Chris, this is actually a super enjoyable surprise to have you come join us for this discussion.
Thank you so much for sending me I just love watching you guys. Obviously, thank you for sending me the invite. I love talking to you guys about anything.
Yes,
so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
A little Lassercast, the OG Lassercast reunion.
I think it's super appropriate considering it's Flanagan's last Netflix series, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Danny, you already did a lot of our plugging in the beginning of the episode. Guys, make sure if you're watching at home that you subscribe to the Lassercast. Let us know what is your favorite episode out of episodes 1 through 6 of The Haunting of the fucking podcaster's brain, The Fall of the House of Usher. There we go.
Midnight Mass in the House of Usher.
There you go. Yes, I'm confused. But guys, make sure you also go to Future Boy Chris, his channel too, because he's got some quality stuff as well.
Thank you.
And Chris, if you want to join us for the next 2 episodes too, we'd love to have you on again.
If I happen to catch you on and you want to send me a stream, I'll definitely jump in. This was awesome. Thank you.
Sweet. All right, guys. So then we will see you all next.